And I'd like to call the Board of Adjustments meeting to order. Could we have the board introduce themselves?
And David Martin.
Donna Cook.
Kathy Slagle.
Frank Lamia.
And if you will look over the minutes of our meeting from May 16. And I'm open to a motion to approve.
I motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I abstain. I'd like to introduce tonight's agenda item, BOA 22.07, public hearing to consider the request of the applicant Le Batard Architecture, acting on behalf of the owner, PSGC Properties LLC, for a special exception to allow clinic use for property zoned PUD planned unit development. The property is approximately 1.11 acres, is located on the east side of US Highway 98, 1,300 miles south of Gayfer Road Extension. And if the staff would introduce the item.
Yes. Hey, Ms. Casey Potts will be presenting that case to you.
All right, so on behalf of PSGC Properties LLC, Le Batard Architecture is requesting a use which is not allowed by right but by special exception in Fairhope zoning ordinance and PUD ordinance 1142 for the property located on the east side of Greeno Road and between Gayfer Avenue and Edwards Avenue. The subject property is zoned PUD and is located within the Greeno Professional Village PUD, and the applicant desires to develop the subject property as a clinic, which is allowed only in appeal and subject to special conditions. So here is a contextual slide depicting the surrounding zoning as well as the existing conditions on site. And then this is the site plan that was reviewed at the Planning Commission, I believe in June, early June, June 6th. In terms of the Greeno Professional Village PUD ordinance, it requires a mandatory site plan review for each building within the development. Alpha Care has gone through the review process and has been approved by the City Council, conditioned on the use approval by the Board of Adjustments. The ordinance itself states that the uses permitted shall be business and professional offices such as lawyers, doctors, banks, insurance, architects, and similar uses. Said ordinance does not define how business and professional offices are interpreted as a use. As such, staff defaulted to the City of Fairhope zoning ordinance to define what is allowed on the site in business and professional offices, and that's why we're here today. So these are the definitions per the zoning ordinance. It defines a professional office as a building occupied by a profession and offering professional services to clients, customers, or patrons, which may involve occasional on-site contact with clients, customers, or patrons. And the zoning ordinance defines a clinic as a place used for the care, diagnosis, and treatment of ailing, infirm, or injured persons, and those who are in need of medical and surgical attention but who are not provided with board. For context, the site will have approximately 70% of its appointments be walk-ins, and historically the city has interpreted walk-ins type of clinics as being a clinic use rather than a doctor's office. So as such, staff recommends approval of the special exception for the clinic use of the site known as Alpha Care, and staff would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you.
If I may back that up a little bit, because we've kind of had this discussion a long time, or many times even with some of the applicants. And we looked at things that are not very clear in our zoning ordinance. What is the difference between a doctor's office and a clinic? It's not clear in our ordinance. So we looked at the precedent, didn't feel that this project really created a problem, but sometimes the clinical uses may, depending on where they're projected, what the use is, and what's surrounding them. So out of abundance of caution, we did bring this in. Similar projects did come in the past for a clinical use. So we do not foresee a problem with this, and we'll be on our short list to amend the zoning ordinance to be clear between a doctor's office, professional doctor's office, which there's lots of internal memos, notes, things like that, that kind of says if it's a doctor that owns it, operates it, you know, they're there every day. Then there's some litmus test. If it's, you know, owned by somebody, but you've got different doctors in there all the time, they're kind of on call, or you're seeing a lot of outpatients without appointments, that's when it gets too clinical. So our regulations will reflect those differences so that it's clear for any applicant.
Sounds good.
Does that distinction make any difference in the special exemption?
Doctor's offices are free and clear. One of the challenges with this project, it's a PUD, which is kind of its custom zoning. Well, it said doctor's offices, which didn't provide any clearance. If it would have been clear on distinction on those things. So that's when Casey says we fell back to the zoning ordinance and how we traditionally handle the distinction between a clinic and a doctor's office. That's where we came to today. So no, it unfortunately does not give us the black and white clear answer right now. But the difference for you, if it was a doctor's office in our use table, they are allowed by right, very similar to what was allowed in the PUD. A clinical use needs to come to you for that special exemption where we then look at the use in that particular neighborhood it is and how intense that use is and the impacts on adjacent properties.
This is very similar to the one across the street as well that we had
A
a few months ago.
little difference. That's a urology. This is, I do not want to be derogatory, so the applicants are here, but is Doc in the box working? Urgent care. Urgent care.
Okay.
And I don't mean that, but similar in the way they're seeing patients and the way we reviewed that. Depending on how our zoning, as you both all know, the zoning amendments we might propose goes through planning commission and ultimately city council for approval. So I can tell you what we might propose by the time it's adopted, what that language is. I'm not sure either one of these projects would fall under a clinic use by the time it gets approved. I suspect we'll still kind of use some of the same litmus tests. So.
Thank you. The applicant is invited to make a presentation.
Thank you.
You want to come up to the microphone, introduce yourself, please.
Good evening. My name is George Lucados, Dr. George Lucados. I'm an emergency room physician for about 20 years. I'm the owner and physician operator of Alpha Care Urgent Care. Currently practicing in Biloxi, Ocean Springs, and Gulfport. Having visited the area multiple times and looking for where I was going to expand to, I thought that Fairhope would be an ideal fit for a lot of reasons, but the main one is the demographic seems to be very similar to our clientele. I always tell everybody my demographic is soccer moms and their kids. We cater to that demographic as well as the elderly. I understand why there's been this whole question of clinic versus doctor's office. We've reviewed it multiple times, and to allay anyone's fears, I feel like my organization is the reason we accept so many walk-ins is our business model is to be there for the community when they need us. When a child has a temperature at 6 o'clock at night when they're sitting at the dinner table, you can come see us rather than having to wait to get into the pediatrician for 1 or 2 days. If you need to be at work, or if you tough it out at work all day feeling sick and you need to come in after hours. So that's why such a large percentage of our patients is walk-ins. Our model is to be a medical facility that is there for the convenience of the community. On top of that, I would say I feel like we have a first-rate organization. I hope you guys had a chance to review my letter, but to have a 4.8 star rating at 3 different clinics in healthcare is pretty much unheard of. If you look at any of our competitors or any of the major hospital systems, people typically go to the internet to complain. And so I feel like myself and my staff have done an excellent job of building a culture that I think would fit very well in Fairhope. We're looking forward to serving the community, And I guess if you guys have any questions, specific questions for me, or if I can allay any fears or concerns that you have, I'm happy to do so.
What will be the hours of operation?
8 to 8, 7 days a week.
So it is like an urgent care. It is an urgent care.
It is. And my understanding is there are no urgent cares in Fairhope. I think your constituents need to travel to Daphne or Foley to go to an urgent care. I will say that the providers that we hire full-time providers. We don't have a different person there every day. There'll be 2 full-time providers at the clinic and a couple of PRN people. I will be the overseeing physician. I have an Alabama license. I've had an Alabama license for years. I've practiced in Alabama at Providence Hospital in the ER. There'll be consistency in who the patients are seeing there.
So by providers, are those MDs?
Physicians, nurse practitioners, or physician's assistants.
Okay. Any questions?
I had a couple of site plan questions.
Sure. And we can clarify anything. I will say, that was reviewed, planning commission, and city council, so if we can clarify anything, we're happy to do that. There was a little bit more information in there that, we had elevations and landscape plans and all of those things, so
Well,
anything we can do.
Okay, the entrance is you're not creating a new curb cut in Greeno.
No, sir.
You're using the one that's to the north, I guess.
Yes.
And then there's the road behind there, that's the existing road as well, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so basically, the new work is the stuff that's in the darker color, it's the highlighted stuff on the plan, and everything else is pretty much remaining the same?
That's correct. Yes, this original PUD was 2001, I believe, that created these lots. Usually most of those are built out. That's Putnam, Blair, Frankfort, Jade Engineering's office. There's quite a few businesses in there already, and they created the lot. There's all kind of stipulations on this PUD about lighting next to the residential.
Mhm.
There's a lot of that. So they've met. We reviewed the site plan based on that PUD, and all of those things have been looked at.
Okay.
Mhm. Any other questions for the applicant?
No.
Mm-mm. Thank you, Dr. George. At this time, I'd like to open the public hearing. Is there anyone that would like to state an opinion for or against?
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Bo Lipitard. I'm with Lipitard Architecture, and I'm the lead architect for Alpha Care here. Just looking at the site, we already have a dentist office and a podiatry office as well on the same PUD, which is very similar service to what we're offering here with the medical side, as well as 3 banks, which also have, quote-unquote walk-in appointments or all the time with, deposits and withdrawals at any time's notice. So I just think it'd be a great fit for this particular location and, be in harmony with the surrounding businesses. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
I will close the public hearing, and do we have any questions, discussion? Somebody want to make suggestion, approval or disapproval?
Move to approve.
Second.
Do you want to take a name call?
Okay, so roll call vote to approve. David Martin,
Aye.
Donna Cook,
Aye.
Kathy Slagle,
Aye.
Frank Lamia.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes unanimously.
Approval of the special exception for the clinic use for the site known as Alpha Care.
And just as Thank y'all.
So are we into the old new business?
Yes, ma'am. We
All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, there was a couple of items added to your agenda just for discussion. The first one, We have an inordinate amount of expired variance requests. Cases for folks that you're familiar with, there's a couple around Creek Lane, there's one on Magnolia, and there's a lot of commonality between those. COVID issues, supply chain issues, have kind of pushed people out in their projected. So I had an idea to come back and anything that was during that time kind of clean up and give a little bit more time for. So I want to see if the idea works for you guys. Instead of charging new application fees, coming through with full reviews again, I believe we have 4 that would fall into this criteria. And next month we'd have to advertise so that they're already expired and people didn't act upon them. Some recorded but didn't act upon the variance. So what I would like to do is bring them back next month. We can advertise, give the adjacent property owners, I'll kind of write a custom letter instead of our normal letters saying what we're doing. Nothing changes. We will not allow under this review any amendments to the approved PUD, basically bringing the case back to you just like it was as under the old new business items, and then formalizing that extension. That's easy to do if they come to us before it's expired. None of these 4 people did that.
Oh,
Are they requesting extensions now, or are you just doing this out of the?
The 3 of the 4 are requesting extensions. We haven't heard from one of them on Creek Lane. If we're going to do it for one, my theory is we do it for all.
So what's the possibility of them getting this past 3?
For us, we've already reviewed it, made recommendations and conditions. We would bring our recommendation exactly the same as it was for those cases. So any conditions under those reviews would be the same recommendation.
We're
we
voting
had.
on an extension.
It would, in essence, be an extension, but because they didn't get it in before the 2 years. And I don't want to create a precedent by this. We've had some with virtual meetings and stuff that's kind of happened in that time frame. This is kind of an anomaly I've talked through with our city attorney and said if we clear this up, but in any point in the future, if somebody lets their variance expire, they have to start the whole process over.
right.
So how do you keep it from being an exception? I mean, in other words, how do you have a time frame, or you approve these things because of, you can say COVID? And I mean, how do you keep this from being precedent?
I think we have to look at anything that we did. We looked at any variance that I believe we went back 3 years and looked at anything. Was that the time frame Chris looked at? So look at anything within that 3 years that could have been their year window or extension could have been impacted by COVID, the virtual meetings, even supply chain. But
So this is a one-time event.
one time is the way I'm proposing it, and I'm very clear, will not create a precedent by doing this. One time due to these things, this kind of gets us back to equilibrium, and I don't, I have some selfishness on this. We are kind of inundated with a lot of work, and having to go through full reviews for the same project is not very appealing. We're trying to get some things done under our moratorium, and there's a better use of our time. So that's some selfishness on staff review.
How long would you extend it? You just treat it like a new one?
It would be treated like a new one the way we're doing this. So there's no way to change the time limit based on
Well,
our
that's fine. I mean, you
regulations.
might as well.
Right. So,
So these all were approved last July, last June, last
they vary,
August?
and we'll have the same, all within the last 3 years.
3 years?
Two or three? What did Chris look at? What did we look at? 2 years?
I believe we looked at the last
I think it was 2 years.
2 years, and I think the earliest case we have was early 2020.
While we say that, some of those, one of these expired previously and had to come back through. So Vance McCowan on the corner of Church and Magnolia. It already had a variance. It expired. He didn't get an extension, had to go through Board of Adjustment, had to go through City Council for multiple steps. And by the time he got through all that, it expired, so he came back through the Board of Adjustment. And so when we go back and look, we start earlier than 1 year. So there's some logic, anything past a year, is expired, but we have to go back and look 2 or 3 years because some of those might have had an extension and that extension expired, or some of those might have been carried over. I think in the case of that Vance's, I think it carried over 6 months before he actually got in front of you for approval. So,
I'm reminded of a client that we had here on Creek Drive whose had expired and had to come back and see us, was kind of disgruntled about it. What was the time on that one? Was that more than 3 years ago? Okay.
that was significant.
Okay.
That was very significant. You remember, Niemeyer? Yeah, it was.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was 13, so 9 years.
All right.
Yes, not impacted
No,
by the issues we're talking about today.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, that was our thought, like, we got to be fair.
Yeah.
So we actually went back a little further than just 18 months, say, and looked, just to be fair to people that might have had the same issue. But we didn't go back 9 years. We figured.
So we're talking 3 for sure, possibly 4.
If we just apply the same logic to anything that has expired right now, there would be 4. We really don't know where one is. One's kind of in limbo. I think the land actually sold, but then there might have been some challenges to what was sold. So there's a lot of speculation in that one case. But so we won't speculate and just bring all 4 of them if that's okay. The other issue is, I think most of you know, Mike Ball moved out of the city limits and can no longer serve on the Board of Adjustment. So that vacates a position. We'll backfill that into the supernumerary role. If David confirms he is willing to allow Ryan to leapfrog him into the permanent seat at the dais, and David will stay a supernumerary.
Yep.
And we'll find a replacement to backfill the vacant supernumerary role. So I believe that's something we can handle next month. We'll put on the agenda that you will actually have to act upon to make that change. So, and maybe we don't have any names yet for the vacant position. So if y'all have any recommendations, their application can go to Lisa Hanks. We'll be happy to take a look at them.
If anyone on the board has any ideas for a possible board person, that would be good to recommend somebody.
Absolutely. All right. That's all I have. We can have an early Monday night. Allie, quit smiling so big.
Do you think you're going to be able to get those 4 together for next month's meeting, or will it be another meeting after that? Because they have to be posted, right?
That was why we're discussing that option. We will have to advertise.
Yeah.
So I'll have to draft the letter, advertise, ask any questions. There won't be too much review work. I mean, they can't change a single thing. We're gonna literally bring the same staff reports, put those in the packets online so that anyone can see that. We'll answer any calls, questions from neighbors, and I'm gonna try to get ahead of that with a letter saying this is not a new project. Everything you saw and communicated on, that doesn't prevent someone from stopping. What we'll have to do in this situation is open up each one. I won't go through a whole presentation, just say we'll add it as old new business, but we will have to open and close a public hearing just to give someone an opportunity, because there may be information we didn't know at the time. So, and then vote on each case. We also have potentially 3 other new cases next month as well.
Ooh.
So one may not get everything in time for us to advertise, but that will be a total of 7 potential cases. Those old new business can move pretty quick.
Pack a lunch.
That's right. You get a break this month, I'll make up for it next month. But yeah, if y'all have any questions on those,
Might be
I'd be
you just
happy
never
to.
know.
Yeah, you never know.
That's right.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second? All those in favor? Aye.